Today, I will be discussing the importance of athletes using their platforms to talk about social injustices. Social injustices have prevailed in America for a very long time. Some examples are wage gaps, ageism, gender, and the one I will be discussing today, racism. According to Yeshiva University, racism in 2020 was one of the most rampant social injustices seen in America. According to Craig Pulaski, a writer for the Kaiser Family Foundation, which focuses on social issues in America, 71% of African Americans have been subjected to some form of racial mistreatment. Just last year, a man by the name of George Floyd was killed by police officers, which many believe was due to systemic racism. This sparked an outrage in America. This spread quickly on the media and television and quickly all across the nation. And this is why it's important to talk about the power of social media. The influence that social media has is very significant. Just off the one video of George Floyd being killed, millions of Americans felt the need to create change in America. Over 3.5 billion people use social media, and 2.5 people watch sports. This is where athletes and sports associations come in. With these statistics, they could use their large podiums to combat racial injustice and be a voice for those who do not have one and those who are facing oppression. This ultimately led me to the research question. To what extent is it important for athletes to use their platforms to spread awareness about racial injustice? First, I want to discuss the athlete's perspective. Many players have various opinions and have taken different actions when it comes to spreading awareness. For example, LeBron James, famous NBA player, has expressed the importance of standing against racism, not only because of what's going on, but from what he has experienced. One day after returning home, LeBron James found that the N-word had been spray painted across his gate. And this caused LeBron James to realize the importance of speaking out against racism. And it's important to realize that sometimes it takes something like this to happen to you for you to realize the importance of the situation. He now frequently shares with his 82.4 million followers how he has vowed to fight against racial injustice and speak on it. On the other hand, Serena Williams has vowed to do the same thing, but in a different manner. Ever since she was a little girl, all she has known was racism, especially in her game of tennis. Her father would call kids over while her and her sister Venus would play tennis and tell them to yell racial slurs at them. Because she grew up on this, she didn't take any disrespect when it came to being called names during tennis matches. But now she wants to focus and use her platform on spreading Black excellence, which focuses on the greatness of Black people and what they can achieve. On the contrary, many athletes do not feel the need to discuss racism because they think they are simply here to entertain, get paid, and go home. But what they do not realize is that there comes a point where silence is betrayal, and it shows their character. Another perspective is sports association, such as the NFL and the NBA as a whole. The NFL gets 14.9 million views a game and has vowed to support the cause. The commissioner, Roger Goodell, has admitted to the public that there is mistreating of Black people and vowed to help support them in their fight against racism. He explains that without Black people and Black athletes, the NFL would simply not exist today. And similarly, the NBA gets over 2 million viewers per game, and they have publicly vowed to their millions of followers that they would form a social justice coalition because they believe that athletes should use their platforms without facing backlash or any consequences. This leads me to what has already been done. Athletes, specifically NFL athletes, have worn names of victims of African American victims to racism on their helmets. For example, number 80 is wearing Ahmaud Arbery. Number 80 is wearing Ahmaud Arbery. He was a black man killed simply because he was jogging in a white neighborhood, and two white men felt that he was a threat to them, so they shot him. Moreover, athletes have been kneeling during protests to show that they will not stand for something as bad as racism. The NBA even went on a 3-day strike in which they refused to play games, and the NFL has also vowed to commit $250 million. The NFL has vowed to commit $250 million to organizations such as Black Lives Matter to help them continue their fight. This now leads me into my solutions. I am proposing 2 solutions I feel that will help athletes continue to utilize their platforms. Most importantly, education. To speak about racism, you must know how it affects a community and what impact it can have on specifically the African Americans' health. So it's important, and it is specifically important for non-Black athletes to know the importance of how it can affect their Black peers. It is also important for them to continue to spread awareness as they've been doing. Second is support. Many are afraid of losing their jobs or being bashed, so it is important that coaches, teammates, and even fans encourage them that this is greater than losing a job or a couple of views. Which leads me into my limitations. Many people just want to come home, sit on the couch and simply watch a football or a basketball game without, during a halftime show, seeing tributes to African Americans who have lost their lives to racism. So many people believe that bringing politics into sports should not be a thing. Athletes were also told, specifically NBA athletes, were also told to shut up and dribble. This has led to sports losing viewership. The NFL has lost 32%, and the NBA 34%. As for participation, well, you can't really force athletes to do anything they don't want to do, and I feel that they should not be forced to do something. They should not pressure to do so. However, it is important for them to understand that this is bigger than sports and entertainment. This is a potentially life-saving effort. Theodore Roosevelt in 1903 wrote a letter to his children called A Proper Place for Sports. In this letter, he explains that sports should not overcome anything else in their lives. He says, but I do not believe in them if they degenerate into the sole end of anyone's existence. The overall theme of the letter was that character is the most important thing. This strongly relates to athletes utilizing their platform against racial injustice. Sports and losing viewership should not be the main concern. It should be about fighting for the greater good to show their good character. Athletes are not only players on the field, nor teammates on the court. They are human beings just like you and me, but they have been blessed with an opportunity and a large platform to do something great and spread awareness and potentially save lives, so I strongly believe they should take it. Oh, thank you.
Couple of questions. Good. All right, question number 1. What information did you need that you weren't able to find or locate? And then how did you go about trying to find it, still unable?
So I needed to know if there were any policies already in place to support athletes or what they're doing to kind of encourage them to speak out, but I did my research, and there specifically weren't any specific policies. How did I go about trying to find that information? during my research, I specifically looked for articles that focused on policies, but I simply couldn't find any.
It's not there, right? Okay. All right, and question number 2. What advice would you have for other researchers who are considering this topic?
Okay, so racism is a big thing. You can have many opinions on it. You can say it doesn't exist, it does exist, it's not that bad. So my advice would be look for sources that aren't biased and focus on one point of view.